having ingested many drugs, I began to realize, after my first visit to America, that music had a deeper meaning and a deeper purpose than the shallow 3-minute pop song. I began to change the way I thought. I began to change the way I look at things. I began to change my writing. I began to talk about things that I thought were more important, and that music was not some way of becoming popular and making money, but had a direct responsibility to talk and speak the truth as I saw it. So I then meet David and Stephen, who are people that think very similarly to the way I do. And I found a heaven there. At the time, I was disenchanted with the Hollies. They did not seem willing to move from that set formula. They did not seem willing to sing songs of deeper meaning. They wanted to do a Bob Dylan album and turn it into a kind of a Las Vegas feel with horns and stuff, strings, which I was totally against. And at the same time, I'd been hanging out with David. Now, when you hang out with Crosby and you're smoking, vast amounts of the best dope that you can find, you begin to change. And I was a very different person than the rest of the Hollies. And so it became evident to me, even before I'd sung with David and Stephen, that I would have to deal with this, and that I could not go through the rest of my life living like this and creating music like this. Crosby introduced me to Stephen. It was Cass Elliot from the Mamas and Papas who first introduced me to Crosby. So if anyone is to blame for this whole thing, she is. God bless her. She introduced me to David. David introduced me to Stephen. We sang together in either Joni's living room or Cassie's kitchen, and we were so high no one can remember for sure exactly where it was. But at that moment of blending our voices together, I knew that I'd found something that was totally unique, because you must remember, each of us were harmony freaks. We were quite good at what we did. And when we heard that blend of our three particular voices, even though anybody else could sing the same notes, no one on earth sounded like that. And we realized together that we would have to make music together for the next few years. We began to talk about what was happening to us as people, as artists, as performers, as viewers of the society within which we were operating. We began to talk about the Vietnam War. We began to flip out our record companies and our managers who said, wait a second, come on, let's get happy again here. No one's going to buy these records. You're talking about deep stuff here. This is not going to sell. Well, we didn't care. Each of us, David and Stephen and I, David from the Byrds, Stephen from the Buffalo Springfield, myself from the Hollies, had several years of the other side of it, of just shallow pop music making money and becoming popular. We decided that from now on, we were going to talk about what we wanted to talk about. We were going to take our responsibility as troubadours very seriously and speak about things that were important to the kids today. We started with the Vietnam War. We started with Chicago. We started with Watergate, with Nixon, with Ohio, with the 4 kids killed. We started with the environmental movement. We started with Wales. We started with the farm workers being starved and poisoned. We started with teaching your children a better way of living. We started to change the message of the music. And obviously we were not the first. That must go back to, excuse me, people like Woody Guthrie and Dylan. But afterwards, many more people began to realize that there was a message in the music, and it was affecting the kids. The kids were eating it up. They were loving it. They were listening. They were taking their destiny in their own hands. The values that were espoused at the time, I still feel are very true today. Love is better than hate. Cooperation is better than antagonism. Cooperation is better than confrontation. let everybody live and be treated as you would want to live and be treated. All those so-called hippie values that the kids glommed onto so strongly are still true today. What we refer to as the legacy of Woodstock, if you will. All those people that went there and experienced Woodstock, even if it was either being there, playing there, being a part of the audience, or seeing it in the media, all those people are now the television directors, the film producers, the bankers, the people that are in control now, and they carry with them those same hippie philosophies. And I believe that the fights that were started then in the 60s, the fight for racial equality, the fight for no more destruction of human lives in war, the fight for equal representation, the fight for a better environment, the fight to feed and educate our children the best way we can, those fights are now bearing fruit. George Bush may want to take credit for it all, but those fights were started by the children of the 60s. The Berlin Wall coming down, the release of Nelson Mandela, the changing attitude of the South African government, the turmoil in Eastern Europe, those fights were started way back then and are only now just coming to fruition.